How you doing? It's the Butcher here, and today I wanted to make a video kind of discussing what I would do to bring Diablo 4 forward and kind of out of this stale state that it's in. I know me personally, I've put out the last several videos, really for the most part I put out, have been pretty negative towards the game, and I don't really think that's entirely fair without me kind of giving a way to fix it. So today I kind of wanted to make that video of things I would do, things I would like to see implemented in the future. Hopefully as soon as season 3, but if not, during season 3 and afterwards, that's something I'll be discussing. But I have a little list here. I have, let's see, 6 things on here that I want to discuss. But before I get to that, I do want to make an apology about my last video. I did have some misinformation on the Diablo anniversary event that is in Diablo 3. I mentioned the video, but I didn't play a ton of Diablo 3, especially towards the end. So I was unaware that that event was already in the game previously and that they're just adding it back in. The reason I left the video up, and I've been getting a ton of hate on it, it's actually very kind of disappointing to see. Just you get more engagement by hate, and people love to comment more about hate, but that's just the way things work. But I am going to leave the video up because I do think my overarching point still stands that their new flagship game, Diablo 4, is starved for content. That's no secret. So this is something I'll get to later. Instead of using the Diablo anniversary as an opportunity to add something to Diablo 4, they just kind of took the easy way out and just re-added that event back in Diablo 3. And if they want to do that too, sure. But the fact that Diablo 4 got nothing for the anniversary of Diablo is disappointing to me when that seems like a golden opportunity to do that. And that was really the main point of the video, whether that was already content that was in Diablo 3 in the past and they're adding it back or not. So I just wanted to explain that and say I am sorry for the misinformation and that I was unaware of that fact, but I do think the overarching point still stands. So anyway, what I wanted to discuss, first of all, I'm not going to go too much into this, but it is kind of at the top of the list. The bugs, the exploits, the snapshotting, all that kind of stuff, it needs to get figured out. Right now, the snapshotting is out of control. You can see my snapshots right here because it's the easiest way to do the Avatar of Zero if you want to push higher and higher tiers. They're completely out of control. There's new ones being found every day. There's so many bugs and things that don't work. And one of the main things coming in Season 3 being leaderboards, which I actually think is a good addition to the game. All these bugs and exploits and snapshotting can just really ruin that and make it a really unenjoyable experience. So I do want to mention that first. I'm not going to go all into it, but I'm sure if you played the game recently, you know what I'm talking about with all these things being found out every day. Or just really bad coding and game design. I'm not even exactly sure how it's all in there. But either way, they need to lock it before doing some of these dungeons and stuff like that so people can change builds and gear and stuff. That seems like the easiest thing. It would obviously be preferable if they could just not have that, but that doesn't seem like a realistic option at this moment. So really the first main issue I want to get into, even though that is a main one, but the one I want to really dive into deeply, and I'm not going to be showing gameplay in the background because there are things here I'm going to want to discuss and pull up, so I would rather just be here and talk to you guys. But the first thing I want to discuss is a better and more diverse endgame. And what do I mean by that? So if you've been seeing my live streams lately, you've been seeing that I've been playing a lot of Path of Exile. And now it's not a fair comparison because Path of Exile has been out for a decade now, but the diversity of their endgame is something that was just mind-blowing to me. And now for Diablo to get to that point right away would be completely unfair. But the way I see it, so preseason, the endgame was kind of just basically Nightmare Dungeons, trying to beat Uber Lilith, which was actually a good challenge at the time, and trying to push Tier 100 Nightmare Dungeons. For the preseason, that was okay. For Season 1, the only real endgame activity became Nightmare Dungeons. Lilith was kind of a joke at that point, but your abilities and stuff and everything like that, and the crazy builds. And there's really nothing else to do. But Season 2, before Avatar's here, with the initial release of Season 2, the only thing for endgame content was really to farm the mats for Duriel and do Duriel to get the Ubers. And the point of being able to get those Ubers was to do the Avatar of Zero when it came out, but that's been such a flop. So really each time they've kind of pigeonholed you into one really endgame thing where I think they need to expand on that. So I think there needs to be Kind of a nightmare dungeon type of thing, a bossing mechanic type of thing. I would like to see different quests and challenges be available as endgame content. I think leaderboards are a good addition and can be endgame content. But I would even like to see, one or two more brought into the game. But I would like to see these things be kind of, how would you call it, like evenly distributed, so you're not kind of pigeonholed each season into one form of endgame content. And what something Path of Exile has done, and I will be bringing that game up a lot in this video because I do think Diablo can and should learn a lot from that game, is they've taken a lot of their previous season mechanics and added them back in as new mechanics, as permanent mechanics. So they're constantly adding to the game. So this season 1, we really didn't get any of that. The only thing we added back was these rings here. It was like the one unique ring for each class. However, that's basically the only thing we got added back in. Granted, there wasn't too much to add, quite frankly. This season we have like the Vamp Tides. Obviously, the bosses will be sticking around, so that is good news. But there really needs to, each season, I really do think they should be taking some of these core mechanics, keeping them in the game and adding them in a way that could be sustainable for future growth, and constantly layering on top of that. I think that is the best way for them to expand. And then, frankly, it needs to be better as well, too, not just more diverse. So, the boss fights right now are an absolute joke. Lilith is so easy. Duriel's, even more of a joke. And the rest of the ones, they're all, if you're level 100, you have no issues with them at all. You destroy all of them. If you're running Hoda, Ball Lightning, Shred, or Pulverize Druid, or Twisting Blades, or Rapid Fire Rogue, whatever it is. Each class you can easily, there's no challenge really whatsoever with any of these Uber bosses. So that needs to be better. Just having the Uber bosses there in a bossing kind of endgame is not good enough. And we'll get to some of the other things later that some of these bosses lack, but they're just not good fights. They're not fun. You go in to fight Uber Duriel and you just kind of bonk him over the head a couple times. Hello there, buddy. And he's done. So, and then the same thing with the Abattoir of Zir. The way it's done is just basically a glyph grind. It's not really good endgame content. So while it does have to be diverse, it also has to be good. And I know that you kind of go without saying, but a lot of things they added are not good. And, the way to farm Duriel and all that, having to do Hell Tides and stuff, and that being the only way, again, kind of pigeonholing you into these mechanics and not allowing it to be diverse, is a pretty big issue. So to kind of go along with that, I want to bring up rewards, because to me, rewards in games are something that is huge. This is a different genre, but it's also a game made by Activision Blizzard. Take Call of Duty, for example. People absolutely love to camo grind, and that's because they get a cosmetic reward that they can show off. There is hardly anything in this game that even comes close to that. So you can have, your different transmogs, but you get those basically instantly, just as you're selling and dismantling gear. That's nothing. What do you get? A mount for beating the Lilith? I don't even remember. I think you get a mount that doesn't look good. You get a mount from Duriel if it randomly drops. That one's actually pretty cool. It's this one with the fire. But yeah, the rewards for doing things, and then for doing things like, if we pull up, where's this page right here? The challenge page. For example, I've brought this up many times. The rewards for doing the Abattoir of Zir, as you can see, I've been up to tier 19. So you can see I'll be up to 15, whatever. There's just nothing. So the rewards for doing challenging stuff in the game, or doing really anything in the game, is basically just titles for the most part. No cosmetics, nothing, no mounts really, or really anything that you can show off to people. And that is a huge thing that people love, being able to show off their accomplishments. And this game desperately lacks any form of reward system outside of gear. So that is something I would love to see change. I would think it would go a long way. I know me personally, if there was cool stuff to grind for, I would be much more inclined to keep playing the game and grinding for that. However, the stuff that have been added, like the Midwinter Blight cosmetics and things like that, pretty lackluster when I think they're out of the shop now, but they had better ones in the shop, because of course they would. But if they could throw a couple really cool exclusive stuff for you to grind for and to actually be rewarded for beating things that are challenging, if they actually make Uber bosses that are challenging and hard to beat, would be really cool. So that's something I would really like to see change. I would really like to actually have, tangible rewards. And the thing is with your gear is what happens is, you can see on this character, I've gotten every unique in the game. I made a video of it on this character running, 3 of them. These next season will be gone. Cosmetics are not. And you want to rock a barb again, this is a store one, and that's why it looks cool. But, let's say you had a cool barb skin or you had a cool, druid skin. You were able to rock that into next season. Then you were able to work for a different one. Maybe mix and match them. That's something that keeps people engaged and interested. So that's kind of it on the rewards. I think they're extremely lacking and it's extremely disappointing, and it really, I think, hurts a lot of people's motivation for playing the game when there's really no point, because you're not getting rewarded for any of it. And that goes along with the drops. You could say the Avatar of the Year 2 not dropping Ubers and things like that. But I think that's something that's easier fixable. I want to see, actual other tangible rewards that you can show off your accomplishments in the game to other players. So the next thing I want to talk about is the leveling experience. So right now the leveling experience, in my opinion, is absolutely awful. And there's a couple things. So once you play the campaign, anyone that plays it once basically is never going to play it again because you can just skip the campaign. And I see it both ways, that people aren't going to want to play the campaign again and again every season. I think maybe you should have to play it once per season with the character, maybe, because the campaign is actually really good and probably like the best part of the game. So the fact that you only really see it once and never again is kind of disappointing because it seems like there's a lot of effort that went into it. And maybe they could, make that the most efficient way to level. I think that could be cool because you would get people to play the campaign again, some of the cool boss fights, things like that. Or they could do something, that would incentivize people to play the campaign each season, because I actually do think that is a really, strong part of the game, and, it kind of stinks that basically once you play it once, it's done. So something like that could be very cool, in my opinion, or could be worthwhile for them to look into. That might be a bit controversial because people say, I don't want to keep playing the same campaign over. Maybe they could add some tweaks in there. What they do add every season is these kind of seasonal quests, which in my opinion are an absolute snooze. I would like to see better quests, be introduced into the seasons. And then for whatever reason, for the seasonal quests, unlike the campaign, once you beat it once in the season, even with your other characters that you want to create in a season, you have to do that snooze over and over again, whereas you don't have to do the actual good campaign. So that's something that doesn't make much sense to me. I wouldn't even mind, in my opinion, a linear kind of progression system where you have to go through the campaign first in order to access other stuff, and kind of bring you along that way. And I would actually, this again might be controversial. It is super easy to get to 100. Super, super easy in my opinion. Even for people that don't have the most time, and over the course of a 3-month season, to get to level 100 is not that hard, especially once you start earning the little blessings here. So you got, 20% XP for monster kills, and they'll do like a week or 2 during the season where you'll get even more bonus XP. So it's pretty easy to hit level 100. I wouldn't mind seeing them also introduce a system similar again to Path of Exile, where when you die, even in softcore, you lose some of your XP. So that way, there is a trade-off of you want to push higher content, great, and you'll level up faster, but you do have the chance of losing that XP compared to if you want to do safer content and kind of level up that way. And that kind of, some give and take there can make some content more interesting, can actually give some consequence to death. That could be a bit controversial, but I wouldn't mind seeing that because right now, it's basically people get to level 100 so fast, and then you're just done with any sort of leveling or progression in that sense, which is kind of sad. So that's kind of my take on the leveling experience. I would like to see that changed. I would like to see them incorporate, even if it's not the full campaign, parts of the campaign, more fleshed out seasonal quest lines. Both of them have been an absolute snooze in my opinion so far. Season 2 was much better in terms of what it added and the powers compared to Season 1. Didn't think the quest line was any better. It was just as boring, and I had to do it 5 times with 5 different characters. But for whatever reason, you can't skip that part, but you can skip the campaign. That doesn't really make sense to me either. So kind of pick what you want here. Next thing I wanted to talk about is class and build balance. This is something that, again, I think would help the kind of overall health of the game, especially with leaderboards coming. I know there will be separate leaderboards for Bard, Druid, etc. But I think, especially within the classes, I know kind of per season you're going to kind of have one meta, like, Hoda this season for the Barb, and maybe next season it changes to double swing. But I would like to see that be a bit more diverse. So you're not kind of pigeonholed into one, and you can experiment with new classes as if you look at like the leaderboards for on Maxroll for the Avatar of Zir, I think the only class where that really exists is Rogue, because they really have 2 that can kind of push it, being Twisting Blades, and also being the it's kind of, again, falls under Bog, but you can do a penetrating shot and rapid fire kind of build, but you're switching your build for the boss fight. So it's not, I don't know, that one's iffy to kind of say, but I would like to see there be more build balance within the classes. And overall, the class balance, the strongest the entire season have been Barb and Sork. I know Shred Druid has caught up in terms of the Avatar of Zir clear, but that's really only because basically what is another bug where they're double dipping on the Tears of Blood, and it requires you to get that to an insane level in order for it to even be effective. So I just think the class balance right now is pretty brutal, and it's been highlighted by the Avatar of Zir. And then I would like to be able to, try different builds and have them all be relatively close, or at least have several within a class that can compete with each other instead of one clear standout every season. I would like that gap to be much smaller than it is, at least. I know each season there will probably be a meta, that's just the way things work, but the way it is now, it just feels like that gap is massive. So finally, the last thing I want to talk about is the live service model. And again, you could talk about my last video and me, having the misinformation. I understand that, but it kind of goes back to my live service model. Why, for Diablo's anniversary, are you not adding to the game? You said this is a live service game. New content every 3 months is not good enough, in my opinion, when you start with this bare bones and say it's going to be live service. I'll give another example of Call of Duty. I don't play very much anymore, but they have their own seasons. I forget exactly how long they last, but in between the season, they have like a Season 1 or Season 2 Reloaded, where it's almost like another season within the season. And this season, we did get the little Midwinter Blight event, which I thought was fine for a little mini event, but that can't be all throughout the season. It's kind of my opinion. We got that, and then we got, I guess you could say, the rings. That is not enough kind of drip of content within the season, in my opinion. This is supposed to be a live service model, and it is failing in that regard. You kind of blow through the battle pass pretty quickly. Like I said, there's no cosmetic things to challenge for after that. They put all the best ones in the shop for, however much they are, $2,500, $2,800. I think that's like $25, give or take. So I think it's failing as a live service. Live service, in my opinion, does not mean you add like a little burst of content and then you don't do a damn thing basically for 3 months. That's basically what's happened from the first 2 seasons. So the first season, I think we got nothing, if I remember correctly. And then this season, we got the Abattoir of Zir, and we did get the Midwinter Blight. So it is a little bit more, but it's not enough. And it's not good enough, and it's not fleshed out enough, and it's just not enough when you're starting at the point you are for a live service model for a paid game. It's not really acceptable, in my opinion. I know those were free events, but the rewards from the Midwinter Blight, for example, were the only good ones really were paid for. So is it really a free event? And then the Avatar of Zir, there really are no rewards or incentives to play it. So they need a way to kind of drip, if they want to do this drip feed of content into the game, not just have it all right there, you need to actually drip feed into the game. 4 times a year is not enough. It needs to be like Like I said, like a season reloaded or resurrected, they could call it. Season 2 resurrected, I don't know. Whatever you want to call it, and have more content added to the game. So that's really the main things I want to discuss. A couple more things I could point out, things I would add. I would utilize this beautiful. They did a very good job with this open world. It's just not utilized nearly as much as it should be. I know they've kind of tried to put an emphasis on that with whispers and going different places, but you're really not experiencing the, kind of the beautiful open world as much as they could, in my opinion. I would like to see long quests as well too added to the game that bring you down to certain rewards and certain other things. I think that would be cool if you completed these long quest lines. I know in some villages they have like side quests, like down here you do a bunch of stuff for like the bandit guy, but just really kind of long drawn out quests that are engaging and actually want to make you keep grinding them to get whatever rewards they might entail. Would also be good things. Besides that, not really too much else I wanted to talk about. I know obviously people think the expansion is coming down here. That's very far down the line. I'm not really going to talk about that. Once we get closer, we can talk about that. But in my opinion, that doesn't make sense to talk about right now. But besides that, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about, and what I would do to hopefully bring some life and excitement back into the game. Like I said, haven't been very positive in my last several videos, so I wanted to give solutions to a lot of the problems that I have mentioned, and also ones that I haven't mentioned that I personally think are problems. And I know some of the things I said might like specifically the campaign thing might rub people, or people might not agree with that, so I'd like to hear your opinions. But I hope you did enjoy the video. I want to hear what you guys would do, if you guys agree, disagree with some of the things I said. That'd be great. But I do hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. It's been The Butcher. Peace.